Marvel comics, we talk about superheroes such as the Hulk or Spider-Man, who are people who are ordinary people but were engaged and have significant edges over everyone else, which means they're stronger, they're faster, or whatnot. And we think that the government shouldn't actively invest in mutating people into becoming like those superheroes as we see in Marvel comics, because it no longer makes them like regular people, because there's a contention that's being placed onto their lives, and that by mutating those human beings into becoming into being people with superpowers, we're already putting a direct infliction on not only their bodies but on their emotional and psychological being as well. And that's a clarification that Prime Minister has never given tackle to deal us with. Our argument for today is that government's proposal, which is to mutate human beings into becoming like Marvel superheroes from Marvel comics, is that it's unethical of the government and that leads to tangible consequences that are simply just too high. But before that, I'd like to raise some clarifications and a few points of rebuttal towards the case of the Prime Minister. The first thing we're going to clarify here is that we still want to capture these criminals. We still want to uphold the safety of society. But we think that assuming that we already have the technology, we'd use this technology in order to improve the police system and staff that we have at hand. We're going to use that technology to capture criminals at the end of the day, and we think that is possible without even having to mutate people into becoming like Spider-Man or whatnot. Please sit down. Our clash here coming from opposition is simple. We don't think that the government should invest in these mutations, and that there are other means and other alternatives that are much safer and just as effective that don't hold as much cost as the costs I'll mention later in my arguments. Because those costs are already too high, and the costs are not something that they're able to respond to in the side of affirmative. Moving on to my rebuttal towards the case of affirmative side. She tells us that in her promise that they're only going to do this if these individuals are willing to be mutated, meaning they're going to do it voluntarily. Simple response to this, ladies and gentlemen. It becomes easier for them to go against the state that way because they're already separated. There's already something that's separating them from the state, and there's already contention there that they are different from the state and that they are different from everyone else, thus making it easier for them to go against them. And there was even a few point of information raised by Jasmine towards the PM and asked if they'd be required to do everything that the government tells them, and she tells us yes. But we question the assurance of that answer, because how can you be so assured that those people will be doing everything the state wants? Because even at hand we have the status quo, people don't exactly do everything that the government wants, and therefore how can you assure that those people who will be mutated will exactly do what the government wants? That's something that we have to clarify to us at the end of the day. But secondly, let's take a look at her argument, which is that it's in the state's interest of defense, and that's something that there's war. Well, it's not the case which simply becomes it's not the case that there's war. What it simply does is it creates asymmetrical war, which means that one side is actually more powerful than the other side. Because in that, at the end of the day, it's not the value that we want to uphold, and I'm pretty sure that's not the value they want to uphold as well inside affirmative. Because there was already a point of information brought to you up by Kathy and asked if all countries will have that form of technology to have access to that, and she told us simply no. And that's a problem that we don't want to arise from this at the end of the day. Because when we have countries that have this technology, when we have countries people who are as strong as the Hulk or whatnot, then it just makes it simply easier for them to wage war against other countries, and that's what's an imbalance between everything at the end of the day. But now let's take a look at her second argument, which is she tells us that helps police operations. But we respond to this by saying that they're not exactly solving anything in this case, because she tells us that we don't have the technology at hand to capture these criminals, which is why we must look into mutating these human beings who voluntarily go to it in order to solve the problem at hand. But yeah, we respond to this by saying that if you do have the technology to mutate human beings, then hell yes, you must have the technology to capture criminals in order to improve the police system. You must have the technology to Because government side never even tried to prove to us how this is an ethical thing to begin with. Then let's go on to my first level of analysis, which is to determine its ethicality. Because we can only determine that by the end goal. And when they tell us that the end goal is actually good, because people are safe, we think that they're only catering to one side of the spectrum and one possibility that their proposal is bringing about. Because they're not taking a look at the harms that this proposal will bring about. And that other end of the spectrum is the very violent one, wherein one country already has so much more above other countries, where it when they actually engage in war, there's already too much of a gap at the end of the day. Because we ask, moving on to my formula.
Doesn't US and China have already such a military advantage over smaller countries in school? Why can't these smaller countries also develop this mutant view, seeing this downside to a size of the land?
The thing with those countries is they have allies at the end of the day, and it's not simply just them who's the superpower. They get those power not solely from their country itself, but from other countries as well, such as the US or Israel.